Well, today we're now in verse 2 of Genesis chapter 1. So, Genesis chapter 1, verse 2 is where we are, as you saw today. And as I was going through this verse, a kind of a controversy came to my mind. And that controversy is over what's known as old earth creation versus young earth creation. And so this controversy really is over the age of the earth. When did God create the world? That's really the controversy here, whether we're talking about an earth that's, say, somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 years old, or an earth that is millions of years old, the universe that's billions of years old. Things of that nature is really where the controversy of these two views lie. And it seems like in the 1800s, around the 1800s, old Earth creationism was probably more the predominant popular viewpoint. A lot of the commentaries that were written then on the Bible kind of really favored the old Earth creationist viewpoint. Whereas it seems more in the 1900s, especially when you get into like the 1960s, 1970s, you really get into young Earth creationism. That's when young Earth creationism really becomes popular. And probably some of the more well-known young Earth creationists would be like Ken Ham. Of course, I don't know if you guys have seen the debate with him and Bill Nye. It was a very interesting debate. But Ken Ham is probably one of the most well-known young Earth creationists. And of course, there are others. And it's gained a lot of popularity, I think, since the 60s or 70s, and it's become, I would say, probably more of the predominant viewpoint in Christian circles. My personal view is that you really can't get the age of the earth from the Bible. It's not something that's explicitly stated, and I think some of the ways people try to get to the age of the Bible is pretty erroneous, and I'm going to go into detail why you can't exactly know the age of the earth in the Bible. But this first section of Genesis chapter 2 is one of the reasons why we can't say for certainty when the earth was created, how old it is, from using the Bible. And we saw in this verse that the earth was a dark, watery wasteland. That's what it says in verse 2, pretty much. It was just dark, there was darkness, there was water, the deep, talks about the deep, which is typically used for a vast amount of water, particularly an ocean. In the Hebrew scriptures, it talks about the deep. So we see it was a dark, watery wasteland. The question is, how long was it a dark, watery wasteland? My contention is this was obviously previous to the first day, because the first day of creation actually starts in verse 5. So I don't think we're talking in terms of 24 hours yet. And of course, this gets in the whole discussion of whether the days in Genesis chapter 1 are literal. Are they more figurative? Is God kind of speaking in figurative language? That's a whole other subject matter that I do hope to address probably in chapter 2. When we get to chapter 2, I'll probably address that. We see that day 1 happened in verse 5. So I would say verses 1 and 2 are separate from day 1. Verse 1 is not a summary statement. There are some who would say it's a summary statement about God's days of creation. It's not talking about a separate event from day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. It's combining all days into one. But I would argue against that. My view is that it's talking about the creation of all space, time, matter, and energy in our universe. And I don't believe it's talking about all of the 6 days of creation and just kind of putting it into a summary statement. That would not be my view. For example, verse 2 talks about a water world, a world that's completely covered pretty much in water. If verse 1 is a summary statement, what day of creation did God create water on? I think it's pretty clear that the Bible teaches quite clearly that there was a time when water didn't exist. So I think it's pretty clear that verses 1 and 2 is not part of the 6 days of creation. Um, that it's referring to a time prior to those 6 days, and so there's obviously a timetable of God creating, or a gap in between God creating all energy, matter, time in our universe, and between that and Him, between that and the 6 days of creation. The question is how long. How long was that period of time? And the Bible doesn't tell us. The Bible doesn't tell us how long it was between those two events when God created all time, matter, and energy and space within our universe, or in our universe, and when He started the 6 days of creation. There's obviously some time gap in between those two, but how long, it doesn't say. And so I think that's just one of the reasons why you can't definitively extrapolate the age of the earth from the Bible. It's just, in my view, it's not possible. And so I think that it's not something that people should get all worked up about. It's definitely an interesting subject. It's definitely something that should be discussed among Christians. But I don't think you're a heretic if you believe the old earth creation, or you're a heretic if you believe the young earth creation standpoint. I think it's a matter that the Bible doesn't specifically address, and so I'll leave it at that. And thanks for watching.